Welcome back. In the past, we've connected to MS SQL and MySQL servers. Today, I'm going to show you how to connect to an Azure SQL server. So let's get started. Let me start OBS. So to get started, I've opened Easy Builder Pro. I'm going to create a new project for one of our CMTX Advanced series. So that would be in the 3000X. And I'll just choose a CMT 3072XH. Actually, let me double check here. XP, we're going to use an XP. But it doesn't matter too much what you choose, just as long as it's in the advanced series. And so we don't have to add any drivers or really touch our system parameters in this case. When we're setting up a database server, we'll go to the Data/History tab and we'll select Database Server and click New. And here we can enter our server credentials. Now let's go ahead and get our server credentials. So I've set up, and you'll want to set up an Azure account or maybe reference the Azure account that you already have. But I've just set one up. And so let's go ahead and create a database. So I will go to SQL databases here. And it says no SQL databases to display. So let's go ahead and create a database. And it's still loading. We'll go ahead and create one of their free trial databases. And so in the past, I've already set up a database, so I've already tested this out. So that's why you see this resource group. It's already created. You want to create a new resource group or use one that's existing just per maybe you're working with a customer that already has an existing group or already has an existing account set up. So you may even just skip this process entirely. We'll keep this at the default settings. We'll enter a database name. I'll just call this Weintek. I'll just call this Weintek. And then we have this server already set up, so WinTech Again, if you're connecting with maybe some customer credentials or your own credentials, you might already have a server set up. So if not, just click Create New and follow the prompts and go ahead and create a new server. I don't think we have to change any additional settings, so we should be good to go. So I'll click Review plus Create. And I'll go ahead and click Create. And it's validating. So then it's going to go through the process of initializing deployment. This process takes a few minutes. So we'll go ahead and come back in just a moment. All right. So our server deployment our server deployment is complete. So I believe we'll just end up clicking on this resource here. Yep. And this will take us where we need to go. So we need a few things. We need to get this server name right up here. So we'll want to go ahead and just click on this copy to clipboard option. Now we can actually start moving this data into EB Pro. So remember, we were already in the process of creating a new database server. So I'll go ahead and select MS SQL Server. We're going to change it from use IP to use domain name. And we'll just paste in our domain name right there. Now, as far as the port, this is the default port of MS SQL Server is 1433. It's actually the same for Azure SQL. And actually, if you go to show database connection string, you should see the port number right here too. So this 1433. Go ahead and go back there. And we'll want to put in our username and our password. Oops, should put on our password. And so when you create your server, you'll actually be prompted to put in a username and password. So I'm just using the username and password that I had to create when I created the server WinTechDB. And our database name should also be WinTechDB as well. Yeah, WinTechDB here. Show database connection string, WinTechDB. Yep, I believe we're all set. So let's go back here. So we've configured our database server settings. All that's left is to actually test our connection. So to do that, we're going to want to add this status/control address here. And we can probably add one for status and also add an additional one for control. You'll notice essentially what this does is it maps the various parameters that we've already set to HMI or local system addresses, or you could do maybe addresses in an external device as well. But those are ways we can modify the parameters, the connection parameters during runtime. So if you want to, for example, if you're trying to connect and you keep running into issues, it can be a lot faster to just map these to addresses and then change them in your project to test a couple different parameters until you get that connection going. So LW0 and LW1, we can see, essentially we're going to look for a value of 2 with an LW0. So I'll click OK, and we'll click Exit. Go to Object, Numeric, and then I'll just add LW0 right here. I'll click OK. So now I'll go ahead and run an online simulation. And so what we're looking for is hopefully a value of 2 here. And if it's going to connect, it'll be pretty fast. We can see here it's just a value of 1. So let's double check what that means. I know it's certainly not connected. So it's disconnected. So now at this point we would add an error. So this is kind of the troubleshooting process. So we'd add a register or a device to this register to check the error code. So let's go ahead and double check. We'll add a numeric object to read our error message, and then I'll rerun the online simulation. And so we have an error code of 2. So I can look up in the user manual to see what the error code means. We can also double check our help menu to see if we have any information. Usually recommend double checking either or. So jump back over here, I'll click help, click error codes. Okay, so a 2 indicates that the database server fails to connect to the database. It's not a lot of information. It's also obvious because it's disconnected at the moment, but here's the next thing we should go check. We'll head over into our Azure portal, and it looks like kind of been signed out of our database here, but I'll go to our Weintek-DB resource, and we'll want to double check. So there's a few things about Azure. Is one, there's an encryption setting, and then also there is a, jeez. Also there's a, it's not like also there's a security setting for firewall. So we're going to want to go into the firewall setting. So at the top here, let's click on this set server firewall option. And typically it'll be disabled. We'll have selected networks, and we'll want to add right here. It's actually already been added. You want to add your client IPv4 public IP address, which my camera guy will censor out here. And click save. So it should be saved here. And let's go ahead and just restart and double check our connection parameters here. All right, still disconnected. So now we got to figure this out. So we'll go to data/history, database server. I gotta look at carefully what I did wrong here. So we have MS SQL Server. This is, in fact, our domain name. We have our firewall rule enabled. And I believe this should all be deployed here. So our Weintek SQL database, our SQL database name is Weintek, not Weintek-DB. So that is probably the issue. Let's go ahead and just remove DB here, exit, come back online. And again, we're looking for a 2. All right, and we're connected. So that was it. It's just a minor issue with the database name. So now we can start actually adding data to the SQL database. We've talked a little bit about how you do this in maybe past videos, but let's go ahead and do a simple shortcut today just for testing purposes. So we'll go to our data/history tab. I'll go to data sampling, and we'll create a new data sampling object. I'll keep it at time-based, and we'll add a local HMI address in here. This is just for testing purposes, so all we want to do is make sure that the HMI can create tables and make sure that it can actually send correct values to our database. So I'll add an address of LW0, which is actually the same connection address that we are already using. So ideally, the HMI or our simulated HMI in this case should publish a value of 2 multiple times for multiple rows into our database. So let's check that that does in fact occur. I'll set the data type to 16-bit unsigned, click OK, exit once more, and I'll want to, just for testing purposes, enable this control address and enable history file. Within a history file, we'll make sure that sync to database is selected. And you'll see that our control address has been updated. So now our control address supports the sync feature, which is a command value of 2. And we'll use that to actually, basically, we're just going to log a couple data rows or records and then click the sync button and then make sure it all gets sent to our database. So let's map our control address for our sync button to LW2, since that one's not yet used. And then I'll click OK. So now we've configured our data sampling to sync to our database. Let's create one more numeric object. So I'll set that to LW2, and our command for the sync, essentially once we're connected, we're going to let it run a couple times, and then we're going to just submit that command 2 to LW2 to invoke that sync. And just to make sure that we're actually getting data into our data sampling object, I'm going to create a history data display. I'll click OK. It's not a very pretty project, but it's going to work here. And so we'll run another online simulation. Make sure that we're connected. Again, we're going to look for that parameter value of 2. So we are connected. And you can see it's already started publishing records into our local history file. So now we just want to sync that to our database. So to do that again, I'm just going to enter value 2 into our data sampling control or command register. And you can see it reset back to 0. So it should have performed the sync. So let's go ahead and go back to our Azure portal. And I know there's a way here to actually review what data is in our server. Okay. I found where we're going to go to actually check what's in our database. So it's called the query editor. I'm just going to click here, and it will type out our password. Click OK. And so now we have kind of a preview of our database. Expand tables. And so you can see the db0 hostname log00.data, this data format, and then this data section table. So these 3 tables were actually just created by our simulation. So it will do that automatically. And so that's why this is a very handy quick test. So I'll go ahead and select the ellipses and click select top 1000 rows. So this performs a query on our database, and you can see down here we have our timestamp and we have our data format 0 value, which is basically the first entry in our data sampling records. So if we had additional entries, maybe we're storing another integer or another value of some sort, it would be data format 1, data format 2. etc. So these would be kind of consecutive. And that's really the process of getting it all connected. So we have it here in our local database, and we have it now in our Azure SQL database. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the section below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.